You are listening to Radio Maria Canada. We now present the Health Hub, hosted by Cathy Biase.
Welcome to the Health Hub on Radio Maria Canada, exploring cutting-edge health and wellness information and therapies, helping you to take your health to the next level. I'm your host, Cathy Biase, and I'm a holistic nutritionist and a professional cancer coach. So many of us struggle with feeling stuck, whether it's anxiety, self-doubt, or patterns we just can't seem to break. And often we blame ourselves. But what if we've been looking at it the wrong way? Today's guest, Dr. Jeremy Thompson, believes that real change doesn't start with fixing what's wrong, but with understanding who you really are. Dr. Thompson is a medical practitioner based in Sydney, Australia, with a background in multiple therapeutic approaches. Through his work, he developed a positive-centered model that helps people shift their focus from their struggles to their strengths. He is also the author of Understand Your True Identity. And today we're unpacking why so many people stay stuck and what it actually takes to move forward. Stay tuned, everyone. We will be back in just a few minutes to speak with Dr. Thompson.
You are listening to Radio Maria Canada. We now continue with the program, The Health Hub, hosted by Cathy Biase.
Welcome back, everybody. Please do follow us on our social sites. We are on Instagram, X, and Facebook, and we are at the Health Hub RMC on those locations. Dr. Thompson, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much, Cathy. Thanks for having me.
It's going to be a great conversation. It's a great topic, focusing on changing the focus, I guess, of what a lot of us do when we're trying to fix ourselves, fix problems. And I guess the message that comes through with what your book and what you're preaching is we have to change our focus. Is that correct?
Yeah, well, probably not everybody, but I think there's quite a lot of people that feel a mixed up sense of who they are, and they're not quite clear about their identity. I guess especially a lot of young people, people going through high school and young adults. I think that's one thing that I've just noticed as a family doctor, how important it is to kind of have a good sense of who you are and not only understand your kind of true inner self, but to feel good about who you are deep inside. I think that's the one fundamental thing that people have to kind of get right to be able to take control of their lives and be able to, live a happy and functional life and not get caught up in too many dramas and things that seem to be going wrong all the time. So, yeah, that's the thing.
Well, you've worked across medicine, counseling. What led you to focus so deeply on identity as the root of healing? And when we're talking about healing, we're going to be focusing on mental health. Is it depression that you are more focused on, anxiety, all of those things? Where is your purpose within helping us to find our true identity?
Yeah, okay, that's
A
there's
lot,
a few
I know.
questions. A few questions in that, but I suppose, look, I'm a family doctor, and I'm mainly, and always have been, just interested in people and what makes them tick, what makes them happy. I did wonder, well, how is it that some people can seem to have their lives, nicely in control, and others are constantly struggling? And the people that seem to have their lives more in control have this better sense of identity. that they actually, they know they're not perfect. They know they've got all sorts of issues and problems like we all do, but they have a way of keeping them out to the side so that they feel more centered on their true positive inner self, and that the problems are kind of outside who they truly are. And so this idea of identity and getting to really know who you're kind of born to be, like who in your genetics, what are your natural inclinations and the things that you're naturally going to have a bit of a talent for and be interested in and enjoy doing. And so, you know, I guess all of those things came together, and probably just being, as I say, interested in all the different kinds of people that would come in, and essentially they'd come in with a medical problem most of the time, but I would like to help sort out that medical problem, but I was also interested in who they were and what they were doing in their life and what they wanted to do next and where they'd come from, all those sorts of things. So that's what I've kind of been working on for all these years. And yeah, and I suppose so that's where the idea for the book came, that I knew that what I was talking about with individual people was helping them. So many people, the people who were unclear about their identity, that they saw themselves in this mixed up, confused way where all their good points and talents were kind of mixed up with negative, unhelpful thoughts and bad emotions and feelings of not being good enough or unworthy, all those sorts of things, which I think we all have to a degree. But the really important thing is, it's no good going through your life feeling mixed up as if those things are all part of who you are as well, because they're not really. They're things that you've acquired and they've got into your headspace and into your subconscious.
Why are we so disconnected? Why do you think that so many people feel so disconnected from who they really are?
Well, and look, not everyone is really like that, as I say. I mean, there's quite a lot of people that are connected. They do kind of know who they are, what they like, what they're interested in, what they're good at, you know, and they get their life orientated in a direction that suits who they are. So things kind of feel more comfortable for them and they seem to work out better. You know, it makes sense, really. A lot of people are doing things that they feel they should do or they ought to do, because the reality is, as we grow up in families, and there are particular family rules. You know, there's religions, there's political views, there's beliefs about sexuality or the right and wrong ways of doing things, about what you should eat and not eat. There's all these sort of social rules that probably always been part of human existence, I would presume. But, you know, when you're an infant born into a family, well, I think there is a certain kind of genetic makeup in your chromosomes, but you come into a family there and there's all those rules of your family and your society. And so it's kind of hard to be your true self, because you have to sort of fit in with all those rules that are around you all the time. And that causes conflict and difficulty, so that I think a lot of kids, for example, when they're going through high school, they actually haven't really quite figured out who their true self is. I mean, it's not an easy thing. And so, yeah, I think
Could take a lifetime, really, couldn't it?
Well, it is. It's an ongoing process, and I'm sure for you yourself. I mean, sometimes you find yourself doing something and you think, "Wow, I really like this," and I always thought I was pretty dumb at that, but actually I've got a bit of a talent for it. So yeah, it's an ongoing thing, and you do learn the different things. And I think it's important just to have an awareness of how you feel, your emotional state, and those little moments where you suddenly feel a surge of inner positive energy when you're doing something, or perhaps talking to someone about what they're doing, and it seems to stimulate a spark of interest in you. Yeah, it's a good thing to keep an eye out for those positive inner emotions, because they tell you something about, yeah, this is something that might be right for me. And so I think it's an ongoing thing. You learn all sorts of different attributes and characteristics that really are part of your inner self.
Well, how much of when we talk about the mental health space, how much of mental health struggle do you believe comes from misidentifying ourselves versus the other side of the coin, which is the chemical or the biological causes?
Yeah, I think, I mean, as a doctor, I'm a sort of fairly regulation doctor. I mean, there are some things that you can see that are quite biochemical. I mean, some bipolar disorder, some schizophrenia, you know, some major depression. Those things do happen, and for some people, some of those medications that try and address those chemical issues can work really well. But say as a family doctor, so I see people all across the community, everyone, you know, from the down and out to the rich and famous kind of thing. And I would say out of the whole community that most of the mental health issues that people are struggling with by far have got very little at all to do with that biochemical stuff. So while there's a hell of a lot of people out there are taking antidepressant medicines or, you know, various other chemical treatments, I I think for most people that's not what the real issue is. The real issue is that they haven't got the sense of identity worked out, and so they're living a life that just doesn't really work for them and it doesn't suit them.
Do
And
we
so it's not
unknowingly,
surprising.
like within this lifestyle, are we unknowingly reinforcing a negative identity or pieces of our life that are negative? Are we constantly looking for the negative side of things?
A little bit, and maybe we just kind of built that way a bit, that it's really important when something bad or dangerous happens to us that we learn a lesson from that, and so that we
Hmm.
don't do it again. So I think we have kind of evolved that way a little bit. You know, often if you ask someone about their upbringing, their childhood, often they'll talk about the negative things that happen, which I always like to balance out by saying, oh, yeah, okay, well, that sounds pretty awful, but were there any good times, or were there some moments where your dad was actually really nice to you and things like that? Because, yeah, there is some truth in what you say there, that people can focus on the negatives. And even if you're going to a therapist or a counselor, often what happens is you're focusing on the problem areas, the things that aren't working out. And the more you talk about it, sometimes the worse you feel. Now, I think you definitely do need to sort out any problem areas and deficiencies. That's okay. But perhaps there should be equal time spent to, well, hang on, who's the real me and what are the positive things in the direction of my life that I need to
Hmm.
get right? Because often when you get that side of your life going right, and you do feel more in touch with your true inner self, and you're making some decisions and changing things so that you get your life orientated in a way that suits you, you start to kind of feel better. And a lot of those problem behaviors and things that were going on just seem to melt away without you even having to address them or deal with them. So yeah, I think there's a bit of a problem these days that people um, might be struggling with a particular feeling or emotion, and so they can go online and check that out and pretty quickly come up with some kind of diagnosis or label for what's wrong with them. And you sometimes can identify with that,
Hmm.
basically a negative kind of label. It's a problem area. And so your identity gets skewed over to that negative side, which I don't think is a very accurate way of seeing it.
No, but I guess
And
some
even,
people find comfort in in a diagnosis. Is that the case?
yeah, they do. That's for sure. But it's where you put that diagnosis in your overall perspective of yourself that's really important. So, you know, I've had some people come in and say, well, I'm a borderline. You know, I have this trouble in my life because I'm a borderline. I got borderline personality disorder.
Hmm.
Well, I think it's better to think, okay, you might have some borderline traits, but I'm a good person and I've got these particular interests and talents in my life But unfortunately, I've also got some borderline issues, like I'm a bit oversensitive to rejection, and I know why I'm like that. It's because of some things that happened when I was young. But there's this other side of me that's actually quite confident and good in things. So there's nothing wrong with really having the label and the diagnosis to clarify some areas of deficiency that you might want to address.
Mm-hmm.
But you get what I mean. It's important that you
Yeah.
see yourself as a good person, a talented person.
Apart from a diagnosis.
Yeah, and all these things, all these diagnoses, they've all got a good side to them. So, someone's on the spectrum. Yeah, well, they might be a bit weird, but on the other hand, they can see things a bit differently to other people in certain areas and come up with some really clever ideas, which a more regular person wouldn't come up with.
Mm-hmm.
Or someone who's got problems with anxiety. Anxiety can be bad because you have within yourself an idea that you really want to do something, but then you're too nervous and scared to do it, so you don't do it. Then you start to feel awful inside, and so that anxiety is a real problem. But on the other hand, a bit of anxiety that makes you be conscientious and be careful and look out for things that might go wrong and prepare for it and end up doing a really good job makes you a very effective person in life. So even depression and feeling down, I mean, it's a horrible feeling. People hate that feeling. But it does make you look at yourself and look at your life and look inwards for a bit and work out, well, hang on, there's something wrong or I wouldn't be feeling this bad. And it sort of leads you towards some kind of positive change that gets people in a good direction. So,
well,
yeah, I
you
think
developed this positive centered model, didn't you? This was
yeah,
something that came from your years of experience. Is this what, the crux of the book is, this positive centered model?
yes, it is. That basically, if you're a person and you're really struggling in your life, struggling in your relationships, and finding it hard to get on top of things, and you're a bit confused about yourself, well, I kind of call that the mixed bag concept. That you feel like a mixed bag. That yes, you know that there are some good aspects there, but it seems to be sort of mixed up and tied up with unhelpful feelings of not being good enough, or I'm the bad one, or I'm the dumb one. Those sort of negative thoughts there. So it's very hard to go through your life feeling kind of mixed up. So I have these models and diagrams where all the pluses and the minuses are kind of mixed up together. And as an example, people talk about resilience. Well, if you feel mixed up, it's hard to be resilient because the negatives and the faults feel like they're part of who you are. They feel like they're part of your identity. And if someone points out something that you've done wrong, it feels almost like they're sticking a dagger into your chest because it feels like it's in your heart and soul that you've got these problems and these bad habits or negative thoughts. Whereas my positive centered model, I think, no, you were born into the world without all those negatives. You were born with a certain set of talents and abilities that hopefully you will discover in your life, and you will have discovered some of them for sure. And that should be the center of who you are. And those unhelpful thoughts have essentially been acquired. And generally with people, if you go through their life and hear about their upbringing and the various things that happened to them, or the bullying and teasing at school or whatever it was, you can kind of see where these unhelpful thinking patterns have got into their life. So my positive centered model is helps people to sort of shift those negatives out to the side, as if you're carrying them around on your back in a big backpack. You'd rather you didn't have the backpack, but they're there, and it's a bit like if you go on a big hike out in the mountains. Yeah, you've got a heavy pack on your back, but once you kind of accept it and just kind of keep hiking around, in the end you kind of forget that it's there. So I think that's a better way to think of all these unhelpful thinking patterns, that, yeah, they're kind of there, but they're not really part of who you are, and they shouldn't be making your decisions. So with the models that I have, people can see that and see a better way of thinking about themselves.
Wonderful.
And also, I often find that people that sort of feel a bit mixed up and confused about themselves, they see other people in the same way. So if they see another person and there's something about them that they don't like, and it's as if those negatives sort of fuse together such that they can't see the positives in that person quite easily. So they tend to label other people, she's a witch, he's a jerk. They tend to, because people are confusing, they'll just see one or two negatives and judge the whole person on the basis of that. So, and they're always kind of getting into fights with people. But if you can imagine, say, with those models that I've got, that if you see yourself as being positive centered and your own negatives are out to one side, and if you see another person as being like that, then you start to, the things about them that you don't like or you're having trouble with, you can think of them as being separate to their true self and think, hang on, there must be a good person there. And the way forward is my positive self needs to connect with their positive self, and I've got to keep these problem areas out to the side. And so it gives them a different way of thinking about things and a kind of a model and in the back of your mind, because when you're having an argument with someone or a bit of a conflict and your emotions are all charged, it feels like they're the worst person in the world. And they might feel that you're the worst person in the world. And so that's why people get into these fights all the time. But if you can just stop for a second and think, hang on a tick, I'm feeling like this person's the worst person in the world, but there's got to be a good side to them. And I've got to be careful myself that I don't start reacting negatively and allow the negative forces that I've acquired to take over my mind.
Well, that's a tough challenge in the real world, isn't it? It is. It's when you're with people and they're not jiving with how you think, and it can be very difficult. I imagine that the way that you are trying to work with your patients, one of the big benefits is that it will help people with their personal relationships.
Yeah, it does. And look, it might be a bit like, I kind of always liked it if I was playing sport and the coach would get out the whiteboard and put it up there and say, hey, this is what we're trying to do. And I guess with my models, that's what I'm doing too, that it doesn't mean that you go out and win the next game and that everything miraculously falls into place, but at least you have an idea of what you're trying to do and you keep plugging away at it. And then at some point you suddenly go, oh, right, that's it. That's actually is working. And you're dead right. In real life, it's very hard. When you get emotionally worked up about something, it's so hard to be sort of rational, and all these irrational, emotional, and often angry or destructive sort of forces sort of start coming out.
True.
And I do that myself. But if I do feel myself going that way, I'll stop and I think, hang on a tick. Yeah, I might feel like hitting this person or abusing them, but what would the real me want to do? How would it handle this situation? And that just allows me a little moment to stop and think, yeah, actually, the real me actually likes to help people. I don't like fighting and things.
And I also think it might give you an insight into maybe their day, right? Maybe they're having a tough day. Maybe they're not identifying properly, and that's what their behavior is all about.
Absolutely. And it gives you a chance to, one, think about yourself. Like, why am I reacting so much? And what does my true self want to do? And also, and what about them? Why are they reacting so much? Like just a moment ago, we were getting on really well. So, hey, what's happened? How come this has gone astray? What is it that's really troubling you? What's the issue as far as you see it? So it opens up a way that all those good communication techniques actually can work in practice. Whereas if you feel very mixed up and not in charge of your emotions, and the other person's the same, it's almost impossible to resolve things.
Wonderful. Okay, we're going to take a quick break here. When we come back, we're going to take a bit of a dive into your book. Everyone
Okay,
will be back in just a few minutes.
thank you.
You are listening to The Health Hub here on Radio Maria Canada. A Catholic voice wherever you are. To contact us and be a part of the show, email thh@radiomaria.ca. We now continue with the program. Here once again is your host, Cathy Biase.
Welcome back, everybody. We're going to continue on our conversation. Let's take a dive into your book. And I know that you have given us insights into your book, but I'd like to get to more specifics so people have an understanding of how it's sort of divided up and how you're taking them through this journey. But before we get into that, the word that was popping up a couple of times from you and that kept hitting me in the head was resiliency. Now, through all of your workings, through hypnosis, through diagnosis, is this sort of the basis of strong mental health, is developing this resiliency?
Well, it's definitely a big part of it, and some people do seem to be more resilient than others. And I guess if you see someone who's like that, you can ask them, "What is it that makes you so resilient?" I guess that's something that I've done. But yeah, I do think it comes down to this thing that it's actually really hard to be resilient if you've got a mixed up sense of yourself and your weaker areas or things that feel like, like some people feel like deep down I'm basically a bit of a loser, or I'm not that smart, I'm, pretty dumb, or no good at this and no good at that, and people don't like me. If you have those kind of beliefs that have got caught up in your sense of self, well, obviously it's not very, very easy to be resilient. The slightest thing goes wrong and all those bad feelings come out again.
Well, could it be the
So,
opposite then? Are people born resilient and therefore their mental health is in a better place?
yeah, look, there probably is a bit of a difference there in the genetics. I think, and even, I mean, human beings are very complex. You look at all the animals, whether you're looking at a bunch of horses or sheep or cattle or dogs or cats and things like that. I mean, there are some that are naturally kind of tougher than others, and
Fair.
some are a bit more sensitive. And so obviously, I think with human beings that we're a communal species, and it takes all types to survive. So there are differences amongst us in our chromosomes for sure, and of course we're brought up differently as well. So the nature versus nurture and all that kind of issue is a real one, and I think both are important, and so it's different. But nonetheless, I think we've evolved over a long time, and it's been survival of the fittest. And so you and me and all of us, anyone who's listening, we're actually the best of the best. So or we wouldn't be here on the planet. And we inherited some good, strong characteristics from our parents, who got it from their grandparents, and so forth down the line. So I think everyone who's alive here should just comfortably accept that they've got what it takes to survive. They've got the inner abilities and strength and talents there. Sometimes it doesn't feel like it, but it is there. And I think the answer is to understand, who you're kind of born to be, and what you've got a natural talent for, and learn to separate that from those negative ideas that you've acquired in your life. And that's
Find your lane and drive in it.
Yeah, that's right. Drive the way that you want to drive.
Exactly.
And other people might tell you what to do or whatever, and you can listen to them, and maybe some of the advice is useful, but at the end of the day, you need to stop and think, yeah, okay, I've heard what they say, but what do I think? And that's the fundamental thing, because when you think about your life and what you're going to do in it, you're thinking, now what do I want to do? What do I think? And, that's a really important thing. You can't say, well, I want to do this if you don't really know who that I really is.
Mm-hmm.
So I always think with everything in life, it comes down to that of clearing this up and getting this better sense of who you truly are. Once you do that, everything starts to fall into place a lot better, and you don't get yourself into situations where, yeah, you're doing all these things that you feel you should be doing to keep them happy or keep mum and dad happy or keep society happy. I mean, obviously we need to fit in our society, so you can't just do everything you want, but you certainly can steer the ship in a direction that feels right for you, for yourself.
You've
And
identified 6 things for balance, 6 keys for balance. What are they, and how do you feel that they restore stability to our mental health?
yeah, that's an interesting one. And I think when I was learning the hypnosis, there was all sorts of interesting practitioners who I did a 2-year course, and every Monday night we'd have like 4 hours and a few weekends here and there of lectures from all these interesting people. But I remember one guy was saying, every human being needs 6 things for balance. And it's something that I've often sort of said to people, just quite simply, a human needs 6 things for balance. Well, other people might have other lists that might have 8 things or 4 things, I'm not sure. But anyway, the 6 things, if I can remember them off the top, because you've sprung that one on me. The first one is having fun, that there is a lot of stress in the world, and a lot of difficult, bad things can happen that can drain you. So it's important that you do things that act for entertainment and have fun in your life. So this is talking about a balanced life. And I think it's true. Like, I often notice if you're watching the news and there's some war-torn situation there, but you'll see on the camera there's some kids sort of playing in the rubble, and they're kind of giggling and laughing at the camera and having some fun, even though they're in some terrible sort of situation. And I think humans do have that ability to make jokes even out of difficult times and things that make you laugh. When you laugh, you get a surge of positive energy. And so all those sorts of things in life that I think a lot of people, when they get busy and they're working too hard, they kind of forget about that. But anyway, that's just this is not in order of importance, but the first one I can think of is to have fun. The second one is just health, as far as, diet and exercise and enough sleep, and that, we're a hunter-gatherer animal. We've evolved to be on our feet, on the go, moving a lot, probably eating a particular kind of diet that's sort of we've been eating for, hundreds or thousands of years. Find the sort of diets and things that are right for you and that work for your body. And so, yeah, health is just one thing, just looking after all those general healthy kind of things, enough exercise and so forth. Work is one, that humans are an industrious animal, and well, particularly I think with men, if they're not working, they find it hard to sort of feel comfortable about that. But I think everyone needs to have a sense of purpose and find something that feels like you're doing some work that's worthwhile. And some people might not, in their 9-to-5 job, get that sense. They might be making enough money to pay the bills, but they don't really feel it's terribly worthwhile. Well, that's okay, as long as you've got something else going. You might be coaching the footy team or involved in some community thing, but just feeling like you're doing something that's worthwhile. Another one is creativity, that humans, I think, are a very creative animal, and they feel better when they're doing things that could be art or music or writing or anything that adds a sense of colour to your life. So a life without creativity is kind of like a life in black and white. And so I think having a sense that you're doing creative things and using those imaginative parts of your mind is an important one.
Mm-hmm.
Spiritual is
You've got
one. And
5. You're at 5. That's good.
am I up to 5? there's one that I've forgotten, and because
That we don't need
spiritual is
to worry
normally
about, but you go in
the
the
last one
spiritual.
I do. But really, and I always say, well, religious people breathe a sigh of relief and think, oh, that's good, I've got that one covered. But it's probably not just a straight religious thing. It's more about having a sense of the bigger picture that, imagine the world without you in it and all the things that are going on in it, and, the planet, and looking after it, and looking after all the other people that are around you, and your sense of, you're only on this planet for a certain period of time. What do you want to do with it, and what is it that it gives you that spiritual sense of meaning of, why you're here. I'm not sure if I've explained that very well, but
No,
anyway,
spirituality is a tough one because um, it can be different for everybody. But I think that we are a lot farther along in understanding that the bigger piece is out there, whatever that piece may be for you. So I think
yeah,
that
that's right.
it is a difficult concept, and everyone has their own meaning for it, I think. So, but as part of the hierarchy of how we identify with ourselves, I think it's very important. Very important.
Yeah, no,
Indeed.
I agree. And I think the other thing is, at some stage we'll all end up, hopefully, very old people, and looking back on our life,
Yep.
and thinking about the bigger picture, and thinking, well, I've been on this planet for 97 years. Have I done with my life what I really wanted to do with it? So it's that sort of thing. And thank you for giving me that time there, because now I've thought of the last one,
There
which
you
is
go.
relationships. That we're not a species of loners, and it doesn't feel that good to be on your own. We do need people, and it's our partners, it's our family, it's our community. And so it's important to have this sense of the bonds that you have with people who are around you. So those are the 6 things for balance. So you need some fun, some creativity, some work, to have some relationships so you don't feel alone. You're keeping fit and healthy, and that you've got a sense of the bigger picture of what your life's all about. So yes, that is one chapter in the book where I go through that in more detail. But I must say, it is something that I do keep reminding myself of, and I think it's a good thing for people to think of. Sometimes people have come in to see me and they're all stressed, and they're saying, oh, I don't know what's wrong with me, but I'm exhausted, etc. And so sometimes I'll ask them, I'll say, well, have you got the 6 things for balance? And they'll ask about that. And of course, a lot of people they've become a bit of a workaholic, and they're working all the time, and it squeezes out some of these other things. There's no creativity, there's no fun. And they wonder why they're feeling exhausted, and there must be something wrong with their body or the immune system. But really, a lot of it, I think, is just that our balance goes out the window.
And
Some
again, this
people,
is another area of things that we have to continually work on. Um, I'm sure we're out of balance far more than we're in balance. Uh, if you could change one belief that you feel people hold about themselves that really holds them back, is there one thing that you are consistently seeing that you would love to change in the approach of people and how they think about themselves?
well, yeah, maybe just when you said that, the thing that came to mind was, I think, it troubles me when people label themselves or other people, particularly if it's a kind of derogatory label. But I think the one thing that's important is that humans are complex, and they've been through a lot of different things in their lives. So often you might see 1 or 2 things about a person, and you just tend to judge them on the basis of that. Whereas you don't really know that person or what they've been through. And I think you should have faith in yourself that deep down there's a good person within you. And if your life's not kind of working out, you're probably on the wrong track for some reason, and you just need to have another look at it. You've got what it takes to live a good life, and with the right help, you can get back in touch with yourself and get your life going in a good way. So don't judge or label yourself harshly. I'm actually surprised at how many people do this. People might come in and I might talk about these issues of knowing your true self, and people will often say, you talk about this, that your true self is a good person, but I don't feel that I am a good person. I just feel like I'm a bad person, that there's no point me even being here, sort of thing. And so people can do that. They identify with these negative aspects as if that is who they are. And I just think that's a terrible mistake to make, because I just really don't think it's true. And look, I used to work in pediatrics as well. So I worked in a kids' hospital. And when I first started working as a family doctor, I had a lot of mothers and their babies coming in to see me. And I've always loved seeing babies. And now, admittedly, they will cry and be miserable if they're in pain or they're hungry or there's something wrong. But actually, if nothing's wrong, like little babies and little kids are happy and they're positive and they're imaginative and they want to play and have fun and they're adventurous. And all I see in them is all these positives. And maybe I'm a bit biased in my thinking and a bit too optimistic, but that's just how I see it in these kids. And then, unfortunately, they can't just go on blissfully living these beautiful lives, because they do have to fit in with the rules, and they start getting into trouble. And then you can see these little negative thoughts starting to creep into their heads. And I've observed this in my work, when these little toddlers are running around my room, getting into my bins and getting into trouble, and you can just sort of see them getting these sulky negative looks on their faces because they're in trouble again. And, oh, mum doesn't love me. She loves my perfect sister more than me. And you know what I mean? And you can kind of see this negative
You can see it developing.
side starting to grow and develop. And then you get some of these teenage kids come in and it goes from bad to worse. Next thing, they've got drug problems. And then, of course, people label them as being, that kid's a no hoper, he's a useless drug addict or something, and they give them these labels. Well, that's something that I really don't like hearing or seeing, because everyone's got a good heart and soul, and they might have gone off track a bit, but there's a good person. And so when I first wrote the book, my original kind of title I had in mind for it was Peace in Yourself, Peace in Your Relationships, Peace in the World, because I was thinking this is what the world needs, that people should be able to feel good about who they are, and they should be able to connect positively with other people and separate out the issues and problems a lot better.
Well, is there a daily practice that people can use to reconnect with themselves? Is there one thing that you can say, try this on a daily basis?
I don't think it's something you work at, but I just think having that awareness of how you're feeling is important. If you're feeling really down and awful, there's something wrong there. And it is worth sort of thinking, hang on, what am I saying to myself? Because often people, in my experience, have about sort of 5 or 6 negative kind of sentences that they say in their mind, oh, there you go again, you're hopeless, or gee, you're useless, or that kind of thing. And so, having an awareness of how you're feeling is important, but more importantly, when you get those surges of positive feeling, which I mentioned before. So I don't think you should deliberately go out and try and be happy, but just go out and do things and see what makes you feel happy.
And take notice of it.
Take notice every time.
Take notice of those things.
Yeah, so every time I sort of get that, and sometimes you're talking to a bunch of people and what they've been doing, for example, on their holidays, and someone will say, oh, they've done this, and you hear about it and you think, wow, that sounds incredible. Well, I'd love to do something like that. And so then I'll stop and think, well, hang on, I wonder what it is about what they're saying that's appealing to me. What's the vital ingredient in there? Because you kind of want to know what that's telling you about who you are.
What you're aligning with, for sure.
What you're aligning with. Other people will be raving about what a great time they had doing something, and you think, oh,
not for
why
me.
Would they want to do that?
Absolutely. That's good choice right there. That's just good choice.
Yeah, so I just think in a person's normal day-to-day life, there's all sorts of little clues there. And if you just sort of keep an awareness to it, you get better at sort of getting to know yourself. And the important thing is the separating out of it. So I often give people a little chart. So I've got one of those in my book where it's got my true self on the left-hand side with a circle full of pluses on it, and a circle full of minuses on the other side, which, it would be my negative side. But people have a kind of a bit of a name for that negative side in the, it's the bad me or the sulky me or something like that. But every time something good happens, just take note of it and start writing those sort of things down and logging it. And every time you get a negative, bad feeling, write down what that little sentence is you just said to yourself. And it just helps to sort of clear things and separate things out.
Identifying yourself. I think that's exactly what so many of us need to be doing on a deal. And it's not something that is, okay, there's the finish line, right? It's a constant, lifelong, not struggle, but an alignment with what we see as ourselves, what we see out there, and trying to work it into our own lives, right?
Yeah, exactly. And look, we all make mistakes, and we will say some ugly things to someone which we regret, but all those things, you just keep learning from it, and hopefully you get better at it. It's staying on the constructive, positive side where you actually get things done. I mean, it's still a beautiful world. There's a whole lot of incredible places, a whole lot of incredible people doing amazing things.
Yep.
And yes, there's some bad stuff going on, and always has been, and probably always will be. But yeah, I really do think we can
just
make the world a better place.
Exactly. Now, your book is called "Understand Your True Identity." Where can people find it?
They should be able to buy it in sort of bookshops or order it.
Amazon. Would it be on Amazon?
Amazon, Booktopia, that sort of thing.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Well, congratulations on it, because somebody who can write a book, that's to me, that's a goal. That's writing a book and having the patience and the amount of knowledge to write a book is something. So congratulations on the book. And everybody, you can, as mentioned, Amazon, your favorite bookshops, you should be able to get a hold of it. And we'll have all this in the show notes. Dr. Thompson, thank you so much for being with us today.
Oh, thanks so much, Cathy, for having me on the show. And yeah, look, I hope someone out there, gets an idea that it's helpful to them. And that's the whole reason why I've written the book is, I'd seen it happen, with various individuals. So it'd be nice if I could spread it out there to other people so that, it moves everyone
to
along.
make the world a more beautiful place, right?
Absolutely. That's
wonderful. Well, thank you so much. And everybody, we'll talk to you next week on The Health Hub.
You have been listening to The Health Hub, hosted by Cathy Biase, here on Radio Maria Canada.